All right, welcome back to a new season of Explorer with Jonathan Hayes. I'm your host. Today we are kicking off this new season with a very special guest. Brent Sass is with us. He is, we're going to get into his resume here in just a second. This show has always been about exploring resilience in the wilderness, in competition, and in life. And I think Brent Sass kind of encapsulates all of that as we're going to see in this podcast. Brent is one of the most accomplished long-distance mushers in history. And that full stop. First race of his career, the 300-mile Yukon Quest, which he won. He's won the 1,000-mile Yukon Quest 3 times. He won the 50th running of the Iditarod Trail sled dog race. So he's one of just a handful of people who have won both the 1,000-mile Yukon Quest and the 1,000-mile Iditarod. So this guy's legit. He's known for his bond with his dogs, and this is something that I got to witness firsthand in the running of the Copper Basin a few years ago. He's known for his incredible endurance in some of the harshest conditions on Earth. We're going to talk about that. And he's also known for a life that's built around living in harmony in these wild places, working and living with his dogs. But at the same time, Brent's life has included a recent period of intense public controversy. In late 2023, allegations of sexual misconduct were made against him that were shared with sled dog race officials and news organizations. Now, it's important to note that no criminal charges were ever filed, and Brent has firmly denied these allegations. Those allegations led to him being disqualified from the 2024 Iditarod, and I believe also subsequently Copper Basin and a Yukon Quest race. Then what appeared to be a stepping away from competitive mushing and the public eye. Some people saw this absence as a nonverbal admission of guilt. Other people see it as his quest for peace in the face of all of this media storm. And I want to take a moment here and I want to say I believe the allegations should be taken seriously. I've physically assaulted, and I'm moving off my script here. I usually don't use a script, but I'm using a script today because it's very important we get this right. I, in my life, have physically assaulted 2 men, one of them for verbally assaulting my wife and another for physically assaulting my sister. So I do take this issue extremely seriously. But I also believe in due process. I believe that our legal system should presume innocence until someone is proven guilty. And I know that public opinion is not that way. And we have just gone through a phase in our society of cancel culture where, people's lives can be completely destroyed just on rumors. So I believe that it's important that whether it be in a courtroom or in the public sphere, that you're able to face your accusers. And in the absence of that, I believe that it's important that everyone gets an opportunity to be heard. So my goal with this conversation isn't to adjudicate what happened. I wasn't there. I don't know who to believe. But to give Brent a chance to speak directly to you all in his own words about his life, about his journey, to tell his side of this story and what this chapter has meant for him in his life. But before we get into those heavier topics, we're going to rewind and go back, and we're going to look at the Brent Sass, where he was when I got the opportunity to sit on some bales of straw and talk to him back in the Copper Basin a few years ago. A man who is known for his extreme dedication and connection with his dogs, passion for Alaska, and for dog sled racing at the very, very top, in an elite class of mushers. So I want to talk about, Brent, I want to talk about what led you to Alaska, why you chose to live the life that you did with a dog team, and what all of that has and does mean to you. So all that said, Brent, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and have a little chat with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I look forward to everyone getting a chance to hear your story. So let's rewind and let's talk about where you grew up and what kind of kid you were before you moved to Alaska.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Minnesota, a suburb of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And, I had my dad was a remodeling contractor. We were a modest family, and I had a brother and a sister. And we grew up just doing everything. Our parents, let us out into the outdoors early and sort of let us fall down and get up and fail and do all those things, which I think is what set me up for the success I would have in life. My dad owned a business, and so we, as kids, were also part of that business. And so we, in the end, I got really involved in learning how to do active, hands-on construction, maintenance, that type of thing at an early age. When a lot of kids were off, going and playing with their friends, I was going to the rental properties and mowing lawns and cleaning toilets and doing stuff like that. We also were in all the sports. My mom drove me and my siblings around to all the sporting events and all of that stuff. So I had a really awesome childhood. My mom and dad were the core of setting the good examples and everything for life in general. And so I was very fortunate to have a great upbringing. I was an Eagle Scout. Boy Scouts played a big role in my childhood. My grandma is very proud that like all of her sons and all of her grandsons are all Eagle Scouts. So that was really big part of our family dynamic. And I think also that was the beginning of setting me up to really be engaged in the outdoors and get further and farther out. And in the beginning, it was just the wilderness in Minnesota, but from an early age, I showed that love for the wilderness.
Yeah, I think you just saw my daughter come through the room. We were just having this conversation yesterday that you do your kids no favors by handing them life on a silver platter. You know, some of the most failed people in the world are the children of wealthy millionaires who had just everything handed to them. Work ethic is, an essential. So it sounds like your parents were really great about instilling that work ethic and sense of adventure in you guys.
Yeah, totally. And that was, yeah, like I said, that was the launching pad that set me off. But the reason I came to Alaska was when I was 5 years old, my grandparents went on a cruise to Alaska and they brought back these photos and pictures of Alaska. And even at 5 years old, I told my parents that I was gonna move to Alaska and live in a cabin in the middle of the woods. And
It's crazy you say that. I'm a
yeah.
I'm a sixth generation Tennessean, and my parents will tell you that I over and over again I said when I was a kid, when I grow up, I'm going to live where there's lots of snow, and and then when I joined the Marine Corps, I was cold weather infantry, and that just kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah.
There's something about it.
Yeah, no, it was something, and I just never let that dream die. And throughout, high school, Alaska was always just kind of like that goal out there. And yeah, then I applied to one college, UAF in Fairbanks, and that was kind of my ticket. I wasn't a very good student. I didn't plan to like go get a engineering degree and go become an engineer, but in the end, applying to UAF, I knew it would just get me to Alaska, and that would start the next adventure. And so I used the university excuse as a reason to get to Alaska and start that adventure. And so in 1998, I graduated high school and moved to Alaska in August of '98, and the adventure began.
So you answered my why, what drew you to Alaska, but why the sled dog lifestyle, and why commit your life? Because as we know, I just took up falconry, and my falconry friends are going to get really mad when I say this. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. They say, it's a lifestyle,
Yeah.
and it is. It's a lifestyle. But man, mushing is a lifestyle on a completely different level. 365, your life just revolves around dogs, and especially the way you're doing it. I know at least during the winter, your place isn't even accessible by road, and living intimately with your dogs. So why did you choose that?
It kind of just fell upon me. I moved to Fairbanks. I was a cross country skier. I skied on the UAF ski team. And, after a year of doing that, so I had the competitive drive. I had a lot of competitiveness in me. I skied in high school as well. And so yeah, when I got to UAF, I was skiing and realized that like skiing in circles and lifting weights was not what I wanted to do in Alaska. I wanted to get out and like go experience something. So yeah, I was out. Ended up buying some property in the Goldstream Valley just outside of Fairbanks, and I built some rental cabins. I grew up working on rental cabins, and I told myself I'd never ever go near a rental cabin again. And of course, I moved to Alaska and immediately buy property. And with my dad's support and help, I built 6 rental cabins in the Goldstream, which is a very big mushing community. It's like a lot of recreational mushers and stuff. And so I was out on the trails. I had one dog, and the story goes, I was just out there one day, and I was going on the trail. I could see a dog team coming from behind. And I had seen dog teams, and I had been experienced with dog teams, watching them going to the start of the Yukon Quest, but I was still just a fan basically. And this dog team came by right at my feet, and some sort of bulb went off in my head. It was like, I'm going to do that. And I basically threw my skis aside that day forth. And the guy who went by was this older eccentric guy, big long beard, big quintessential Alaskan guy, and I kind of known of him. His name was Kurt Wold. And so a couple days later, I went to his place and was like, "Look, I don't know anything about dog mushing, but I want to be a dog musher. Like, how do I get started?" And he looked at me and kind of laughed and was like, "Oh, come back in a couple weeks and I'll get you started." And I didn't know what that meant at all. So I went and did my thing, and he came back in a couple weeks. And he's like, "Oh, you came back." And he went over and he grabbed this puppy and he came over and he handed it to me and he goes, "There's your first Alaskan Husky. Now you're a dog musher." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't really know how to respond." But that dog ended up being a dog. I named him Silver after Silver Gulch Brewery here in Fairbanks, because I was spending a lot of time at the brewery at that point in my life. And that dog went on to become the most loyal companion on the planet, and basically all of my genetics still go back to him. He's the basis of all of my genetics. He ended up growing into this quintessential Alaskan Husky looking dog. And that was where the journey started. I got him, and then I immediately needed a dog team. So I went to the free ad column and I just collected 5 or 6 dogs and scraped the sled together and just started doing it with zero knowledge, nothing. I was just looping around the Goldstream Valley with these totally, the motley crew is what I called it at that point, because they were like, it was a St. Bernard Husky mix, a Mackenzie River Husky. Like, it was literally whatever I could scrounge up was what I started with. So that's how it all got started. And then after that, I just had a long string of very awesome people I met that got me more involved and more involved. I was building these cabins and had this little team living in a tent for the most part in the early years, because I wanted to rent the cabin out so I could get money coming in so I could pay for dog food. So it was like this will to make it happen kind of thing. And then one day I decided I wanted to go and get like another job so I didn't have to totally rely on my rental cabins. And I applied for a job at a kennel, because I was like, "Oh, I'll go to a kennel. I'll figure out, what more information and learn more about dogs and whatnot." And I show up to the kennel and I didn't do any I just looked, this kennel. I went there and I knocked on the door, and I got there. It was this really big house and this nice lake and around the river, and pull up and I knock on the door, and this guy answers the door, and I walk in, and there's this big mural of Susan Butcher on the wall. And I'm like, wow, these people really like Susan Butcher. And I look over to the side, and it's Susan Butcher sitting right there. I just walked into Susan Butcher in Dave Munson's living room. And I was like, at this point, like, I knew who Susan Butcher was, but I was not that ingrained in the history and everything. And so, but I knew obviously who Susan Butcher was. And that kicked off a decades plus long relationship with them, and becoming, part of their kennel. My first capacity was there to build kennels and to help Susan sort of redesign her kennel. That's what the whole contractor side of things. I was there to sort of be that help. But she immediately saw the love I had for the dogs. I had just had a small 6-dog team at that point, and I just became really good friends. She, unfortunately, at the time was suffering from leukemia, and so she was at the later end of her life and her career as a musher, and wasn't able to do a lot of that stuff. And throughout the time I was there, I got into everything involved with all the tourism, everything there that they do. But I also got an opportunity to spend a little time with Susan and run dogs, and then go back, and she could live vicariously through what I was doing with the dogs. And we bounce ideas off, and she'd be like, okay, how'd the run go today? And I was like, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened. And she would tell me what to do next time or whatever. And at the time, I didn't really know what that was doing for me. But looking back, those were the foundations of everything that started my mushing career. And
I knew there was some connection with you and Susan Butcher. I didn't know whether it was, that you were mushing out of the same place or the same trails. Or I knew there was some kind of connection. So that was one of my questions that I had here. Actually, you're covering a lot of them. I don't want to open a Pandora's box here by asking you this, because I know how passionate you are about it. But your dogs are known for being really Arctic dogs when compared to, some of the racing huskies that you race against.
Yep.
So talk to me a little bit about that, like how you developed that and what you looked for.
Yeah, so after getting that exposure with Susan, I knew that I wanted to be a dog musher. I knew that I wanted to race. That gave me that connection to the racing. And so at that point, I started to figure out, okay, if I want to build this kennel, I need to get some good genetics. This motley crew here is not going to get the job done. Susan gave me the opportunity to actually run the Serum Run route in 2005. I traveled the trail with their dog, so that was like my first edition of going on a long distance traveling trip, and it totally hooked me. I went back, and at the time, Lance Mackey was the man, and he was my hero, is my hero, still is my hero. And at that point, I was like, I'm going to go to Lance and I'm going to get some dogs and I'm going to start this kennel. And, I'll never forget it. I was at Lance's, and he had seen me a couple of times, like I was starting to be on the scene a little bit. And I had gotten some Susan dogs, and that was kind of one of the dogs I ran my first Quest, the 300 in, and I had success. And so people sort of knew who I was at that point, but it wasn't like I was still a newbie and didn't really have a full kennel. And I'll never forget it. I was at Lance's place, and he's like, I was buying 2 dogs, and he looked at this little female, and he's like, take that bitch and breed her to that big male you got. And that was Silver, and that he had like been the star of my first race. And this was like God telling me to go and do a breeding, in my eyes. I was like, all right, that's Lance Mackey said, do this. Let's do this.
If Lance says it, it's got to be right.
Yeah. So I bred that dog, and it created the first round of my true race dogs. It was between Silver and this dog named Chicken, who eventually would go back to Zorro. So it was really part of his core genetics. And then I built the kennel around that. And for me, it was about racing, but it was also about exploring the wilderness. And I really loved the Arctic. I had spent some time way north of the Arctic Circle, up in the Brooks Range with this small dog team that I had. And I wanted to get in there. The original version of my mushing was to get further and farther out into the woods to hunt caribou and to get to be able to explore the wilderness. And the racing kind of fell in after I started getting with Susan Butcher. And so in my head, I wanted to create a dog that could go run the Yukon Quest. Eventually, that was my original goal, was to run the Yukon Quest, then go run the Iditarod, and also do these expeditions in the Arctic, because I figured I need to find a way to make some money, so maybe I'll try and tie that all in and do expeditions in the Arctic. And so in my head, I couldn't have these no fur sprinty dogs, like you saw with, a Martin Boozer team or something like that. That wasn't going to be my style. My style was creating this dog team that could,
which makes your other goals more difficult, right? Because
totally.
If you're going for a more traditional Arctic dog like I have, because I've dedicated my life last 30 years to the Seppala Siberian sled dog. And so, dedicating yourself to a traditional Arctic breed dog means it's going to be more difficult in an average year to win an Iditarod, but the year that you won it, it wasn't an average year. I mean, it was pretty brutal.
Totally. And, but throughout all of that, I bred that, and then obviously I did more breeding, and the kennel grew. And for a few years, I had a pretty large kennel, and I was working at another tourism operation here outside of Fairbanks, and I was making money, and I was sort of able to expand the kennel and start really getting nerdy about the genetics, and not like the names and whatever, but like the dog that I wanted to create that would be best for my personality, the way that I like to do things, the way that I ran dogs. And I was just making up the way that I ran dogs at that time, but it was really based around the way Lance Mackey ran dogs. Tough, throw it all out there, go for it 100%, and see what happens. Put all the work and effort in to make it happen, and just go at it. And that was my mentality and philosophy. And throughout the years, I was able to create a breed that was really good for that Arctic and could survive in the Arctic, but also got the speed and got all the stuff they needed for to be a competitive sled dog and competitive in the races. So it was a really fun process, and I take a lot of pride in that, and the dogs. And that throughout all of that, it became clear that I was in this for the dogs.
Yeah.
That I really enjoyed the bond and connection that I built with the dogs. And through all of that is where my whole racing career sort of took off.
So that's how you shaped your dogs. Tell me how that journey with your dogs, how that shaped you, like your character, like your person, having that relationship with them. You're developing a team, but they're developing you as a person, I would imagine.
Oh, totally. I mean, the dogs changed me. I was a very high energy person. I'm still a very high energy person, but I didn't have any patience. I was sort of a bulldozer type person. Like, I'm going to go do this. And I would just bulldoze through whatever needed to get done to get to the point where I needed to accomplish my goals. And the dogs sort of slowed me down. The dogs taught me patience more than anything. I think a lot of people probably say that. And the dogs sort of formed the way that I wanted to move forward. And the dogs became, because I moved to the bush, then eventually the dogs became my family. I was around dogs more than I was around humans for the last 15 years, no doubt about it. And that has shaped everything that I am, and their perseverance and resilience and all of that is something that I already had those strong traits, but the dogs just put the period at the end of the sentence, like, these are definitely the people that I need to be with. And the dogs taught me, I mean, countless things. And I wouldn't be the same person I am today if I hadn't have spent, the last 20 years completely devoted to the world of sled dogs.
Yeah. So you focused your breeding program toward, the Iditarod's the longest race, but the Yukon Quest is by many standards the most brutal. It's further between checkpoints. A lot of really harsh elevation changes for people who are familiar somewhat with the Iditarod, but not the Yukon Quest before it split up. Talk to us a little bit about that race. And you won it 3 times, so you're the person to speak to.
Yeah, I was originally attracted to the Yukon Quest because of its wilderness aspect. The main difference between the Quest and Iditarod was the Quest only had 10 checkpoints between start and finish. And so you had to be a lot more self-sufficient. You were traveling longer distance between checkpoints. You had to have a lot more support and a lot less support. And so you had a lot more self-reliance. And that was what I was all about as a musher. I was all about that part of it. And it's run a month earlier, so it's, a lot colder generally, a lot darker. And so it just provides a lot more wilderness experience than the Iditarod. No, nothing to take away from the Iditarod, but the main difference is that support. There's 20 some Iditarod checkpoints. You're stopping a lot more, you're getting resupplied a lot more, where the Quest, you don't have that. And so you're really forced to rely on your wilderness skills, your dog care skills. That was something that was really apparent in the Quest. Like, the better you, obviously that's how it is in Iditarod too, the better you take care of dogs,
Sure.
the better you're going to do. But in the Quest, when you're out there at 40 below and you have 200 miles to the next checkpoint, you can't ask a vet during that time what's going on. You have to be able to decipher all of this on your own. And so the Quest is just, I always told people, it was just more of a wilderness style race than the Iditarod. And then obviously it didn't have the huge competitor that the Iditarod did, during the heydays. but it had a core of really hardcore mushers from Canada and the US that sort of drove the competitiveness of it. Hans Scott, obviously a competitor in both the Quest and Iditarod. He was a 4-time champion, and then obviously Lance Mackey dominated it. So yeah, it was it's a shame the race isn't around anymore. It was what I based my entire career on, and I'm glad that was the race that I focused on early on.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a massive feather in your cap for sure that that became your bread and butter because of just the grueling nature of the race. But um, I think, and this is shift over to the Iditarod real quick. I think probably that kind of racing. Let me back up. You had talked about your desire to be out in the wilderness with your dog team, and that's kind of what you're known for. And um, you know, uh, I know people love these narratives. The Iditarod really built up the differences between Brent Sass and Dallas
Yeah,
Seavey, their different
yeah.
training styles, and Brent is more backwoods, and I remember Dallas saying I can do backwoods as good as anybody, and so and I'll stop here and I'll say the Seaveys, Mitch is my mentor. When I met you, I was sharing a hotel room with Dallas. So man, these guys are, I actually mentioned to you that night, I said, I'm a CV fan, but my wife is a Brent Sass fan. So I've got to get a photo with you. And I completely believe Dallas when he says he could go toe to toe with anybody out in the backcountry. But you guys did have very, very different training styles, and the Iditarod that you won. I did the Centennial Seppala expedition last year and went through the blowhole, and the wind chill was about -78. And I saw the video of when you went through the blowhole the year you won. And so tell me about how your background, your dogs, and what you did prepped you for that 50th running of the Iditarod.
Yeah, I mean, it really that leads into all about where I lived and my lifestyle. I made the conscious decision through Susan Butcher and Dave Munson. They owned a homestead outside of Fairbanks, 150 miles in Eureka. And when I was working for them, I got the opportunity to go out there and train. And I looked at this and I was like, this is what makes a dog muster successful: being away from town, being out of the rat race, completely focusing on the training of your dogs, living the survival lifestyle every single day, and just not having the clutter of town. And so that is what sort of instilled even more of the wilderness. I've always been wild and free, sort of epitomizes the way that I sort of am in general. But when I moved out there, that I started gaining knowledge, and basically what I tell people is my life is one big dog race. I'm constantly overcoming challenges. I am the plumber, I am the electrician, I am the plow guy. I'm everything. You can't depend on anybody else. You can't, so those skills that I learned over the last 20 years of living in the bush and being out at the homestead, that's what I feel like has set me up for the success I had in the sport. I couldn't imagine have done it any other way. And I feel like that day-to-day struggle, because that's what it was, that's what it is what helped make me a successful dog musher, for sure.
So what did winning the 50th mean to you personally?
I mean, winning that race, I had won 3 Yukon Quests. I had been there and done that.
But this was your bucket list, right?
This was the culmination. Yeah, this was like when I started dog mushing, I opened up my young dumb mouth and said, I'm going to win the Yukon Quest and win the Iditarod, before I'm done with this. And so when I just remember, I mean, coming in, especially with how crazy that race was and the big storm at the end, and how, basically I had Dallas Seavey chasing me for, 1,000 miles. I was in the lead pretty much the whole race. And it was one of the more stressful things I've ever encountered in my life. But the thing is that this is all about confidence and leaving no stone unturned in training. And I feel like I base a lot of my success in my training. I put a lot of miles on the dogs. I put a lot of time into those dogs. And when I go into a race, there was no stone unturned, and I had 100% confidence. And so when I was in the middle of Iditarod and I got Dallas CV chasing me, and it's, we're all tired. We've been going for days. We're in the middle of a storm. I've got all this built confidence that's just built into me that doesn't allow me to stop. It doesn't even allow me to second guess anything. It's just like we're moving forward. I mean, at one point in that race, I was blowing off the trail up in the Topcock Hills, and I was, the whole world watched my tracker stop for an hour, wondering what I was doing. And the whole time it was crazy. It was the craziest.
Dude, that video was sick. And
yeah.
I have that video, by the way.
Yeah, it was nuts, man. It was insane. But, in the end, we just persevered. And that was sort of part of, and I think that just lays back to my training. I think all of this is about confidence. And the more confidence you have in you and yourself and your dogs, the better you're going to do in the races. And I went into all these races having known that I put 4,000 to 5,000 to 6,000 miles on the dogs beforehand, having known I did all of the race prep, I camped, I ran the first half of the Iditarod before I even got to the Iditarod in a schedule. So I knew I was not entertaining anything or showing anything to the dogs that we hadn't already done in training. And, that's a lot of stuff you're going to hear from Dallas. And, we are very different people and we do very different things, but our devotion to the sport and our passion for the sport and our love for the dogs and our work ethic are very much the same. And I feel like,
and I think that, it really takes having that. Well, I'll tell you this story. I told you that, Mitch is one of my 2 mushing mentors and probably the primary one. The CVs, they call it like they see it. They don't pull any punches, if they think, they're not going to beat around the bush. And, so, I was there at the Copper Basin, with you and the CVs, and, there are some mushers, that, that would let me know that they didn't have a high opinion of, but I will tell you, and this goes back, to your reputation, before this big blow up that we're going to get into soon. They had absolutely nothing negative to say about you. Even when I probed a little bit, Mitch actually said something to the effect of, well, he's our primary competitor, so we can't be too nice to him, or something, something to that effect. Well, so I mean, you had earned this reputation of being a nice guy, and that was the guy that I met. You earned this reputation of being a really nice guy, extremely dedicated to your dogs, and I in my mind, I kind of painted the difference between you and Dallas as kind of like the Iceman and the Maverick from Top Gun. Like Dallas is, ice cold, everything is precise, everything is just, and you're just, more of the Maverick, just, go for it kind of, personality. And, and it was always fun watching that play out between the 2 of you.
Yeah, I mean, and the bottom line is that my success came from my failures, if I'm honest. I mean, most people know, if you followed my career at all, it was very up and down. I was going 1,000%, and when you throw 1,000%, you fall down and you got to get back up. And I fell down a lot, and in 2016, one of the things, it was one of those races where I was racing against Dallas and Mitch. We were in the top 3. It was the 3 of us, and we were plowing, and I was like, this was a dream come true to me. I was out there on the coast running, looking around, seeing the 2 CVs around me, and I was like, it was the most amazing thing on the planet. And then, I got to White Mountain, and obviously I had made some mistakes that I knew that had happened, way before, earlier in the race. And, my team wasn't ready to go when I was ready to go from White Mountain, and I went from 3rd to 20th. And it was like the biggest slap in the face for myself to myself. It was all my fault. I made those decisions. But, I was chasing the CVs, and I got caught up in their race. And that was a huge mistake, and one that I learned, and it was a hard lesson to learn, but I parked them, and we got in, we finished the race. I knew the dogs had accomplished their goal. I got them across the finish line, not where I wanted to, but I learned a lot from that race, and the CVs watched that. And they, I think at that point they're like, oh, this guy, yeah, he still hasn't learned how to get this done or whatever. And they were right, but I took that as more motivation to put my head down and charge and learn what they were doing differently that I wasn't doing. And again, it was just about experience and about making those mistakes and correcting your mistakes and learning from your mistakes and moving forward and taking full accountability. I mean, I took full accountability for what happened in that race, and that was really important to me because I knew that I made a mistake. The dogs were not in fault. And so, my relationship with the Seavies sort of grew from there, and then they saw, like, I think they could see that, like, over that time I started to actually learn something, and I actually started to put the things to use, and then actually became a real competitor, in those later years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I got a couple softball questions for you before we move on.
Yeah.
I can't trust anyone who doesn't drink coffee. So what what's going on with that?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what the whole basis of it is. When I was a little kid, my mom would go on, take us kids on her coffee, our coffee breaks with her friends, and she'd put her face right in my face. And when I was a kid, I have this horrible memory of coffee breath in my face. I'm blaming it all on my mom. And
My poor kids, because I'm a coffee addict. So
so yeah, and I just got a really bad taste for coffee from that as a young kid, and I just literally I've never drank a cup of coffee. I still intake plenty of caffeine in different ways, but I do not drink coffee.
okay.
So
next softball question. I think I might actually know the answer to this question because I've been experimenting with it. But and this will give you an idea of how much of a student I am of you master mushers. You sway on the runners
all the time. Yep.
Uh-huh.
It's a
So
trademark.
talk to me about that.
I have a hard time sitting still as to where it really bases from. And so I would, start doing the sway thing, and it just became something I did without even knowing I was doing it. And then I kind of realized, like, hey, I think maybe like it might actually help me go a little faster. So then I started doing it even more, and it became a trademark. A lot of people have followed me and seen the sway for sure. But yeah, it just kind of happened, to be honest. I don't really know. I think it sprouts from the fact that I just can't sit still very well. And,
Well, what I've noticed with my team is going up hills when they're starting to slow down. If I start to sway like I've seen
yep.
you do, it helps to keep like this movement to the sled that keeps the dog's momentum going in some weird
Yep.
way. You'd think that it would cause extra friction, but for some reason it seems to help keep my dogs moving forward. It's weird.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have an explanation for it, but
yeah. Okay. Well, back in late 2023, your career took a really dark turn, a sudden dark public turn. There were allegations, I guess, multiple allegations of sexual misconduct were made against you. When you were first made aware of these accusations, what was going through your mind? How did you hear about it? I mean, were you approached first? Did you hear anything before it went to news? And, like, how did you hear about it, and what was going through your mind?
yeah, I was shocked was the first thing. Like it caught me so off guard that it was crazy. And the only way I found out was because letters had been sent to race organizations, and thankfully, and my sponsors. That was the only place that that initial letter was sent out, was race organizations that I had been signed up for, and my main sponsors, that they could just go on my webpage and be like, oh, this guy is sponsored by these people. And I don't have like big corporate sponsors or anything. It was all smaller gear, real small organizations and small businesses that were supporting me, and then a lot of individual people. And so just targeted towards those people and the races. And the only reason I found out right off the bat was actually Ray Reddington from the K200 got the letter, and he reached out to me and gave me the heads up. Hey, he's like, hey, this just came out. I just got this email, alleged with the allegations, and that it blew everything up. And then from there, I knew, well, this isn't probably the only guy. And then I realized the next following days that, probably all the races got it. I started hearing from my sponsors. The next day, I just called all the races because I had assumed that they had gotten this letter that accused me of sexual assault, and said that it wasn't safe for me to be in villages. It was really just like a really poorly written letter because you could read it.
Hit piece.
Yeah, you could read it and see like they just splashed out the word rape and they splashed out the word women and they put my name into it, and then they started talking about these native, and it's just a joke because I had been mushing in the native villages and throughout the mushing community for 15 years at this point, 10, 15 years, and had an impeccable relationship with everybody, and my reputation was as stand. So it was, to me, I was like, this is crazy, but like, I'm gonna fix this. Like, this is a joke. Like, how can people take these things seriously, especially when they just sent it to my sponsors and to the races?
Well, and that was something that jumped out to me because, in prep for this interview, I did a little bit of a deep dive, and, and for the record, I have to say, I wasn't there. I don't know if you're innocent or guilty. I wasn't there. I don't know if they're telling the truth or lying. That said, you not hearing from police, not hearing from law enforcement, not hearing from a court, and you not being approached about this, but it going straight to races and sponsors, whether it's true or not, this is definitely a hit. Like, this is we are going to destroy Brent Sass.
Yeah, that was the point. There was no seeking of justice. There was just the attacks, and I hit it head on. I talked to the races. I said, I'm willing to work with you. Let's figure out how to exonerate. Let's figure out this and figure out how we can work through this, because I told them this is all lies. I denied all of the allegations, and to be honest with you, like, I immediately reached out to Copper Basin, immediately reached out to those races, and everybody was like, well, where's the, where are you been charged? Is there? And I was like, no, there's nothing. There's no charges. All this is a ploy to go after my career and me as a person. And so I proactively tried to contact, obviously my sponsors were just like, yeah, they pretty much just discarded it right away. They realized, like, they were behind me 100% right from the get-go. I never lost any sponsors. I never had any problems with any of my sponsors. Like, and my reputation preceded me, and that was luckily, like, that's what people held on to in my close realm, but immediately, obviously, action started happening, and there's a little bit of a timeline here that I think most people don't understand. What happened was Iditarod reached out. I reached out to Iditarod, and they formed a panel from their board members, and I had a video chat with Iditarod, and I told them my truths, and the letter was written by a person named Rose O'Hare, and that's where this all starts, is because I had a prior not even a relationship, we had hung out in the past, and it was totally amicable, and it was a friendly interaction, and we had our time, and then we parted, and there was no, like, she continued to be around in our circles. And so I had a history with this person who wrote this letter, which was, was kind of crazy to begin with. And they had put the Planned Parenthood, it was on Planned Parenthood letterhead, but I immediately hired lawyers. I immediately went after this and did some research, and Planned Parenthood had no comment. It was obviously a rogue employee. There was they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And through my lawyer, there was no point in even pressing them, because this is a huge operation and they're just going to deny it. And there isn't anything that I can do to turn that around. So she just used that as a thing. So Iditarod did their investigation. They had an interview with Rose as well. She could give them no information. She could give them nothing more than she wrote in this letter. And like a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, they closed it with insufficient. They closed the case and said that these letters have no sufficient evidence of any wrongdoing, and we are closing this accusation. So it got closed out at that point. The Copper Basin and the K200 all fell in line with them, and the Yukon Quest all was just like, yeah, if there's no charges and these, we can't legitimize these accusations. And everybody, it kind of just died off a little bit at that point. But then in December, like, and this whole time I'm like in the middle of my training. I'm like going as hardcore as I can go. I'm putting my head down. This isn't stopping me because I am innocent, and I know that. And so I have 100% confidence to just keep plowing forward. December 12th, the K300 is the first contact I had with the K300 over this. They had not gotten in touch with me. But after the Iditarod dropped it, I just figured, that's the biggest race in the sport. Most of these other races don't have the capabilities to do any major research or anything like that. And so they're going to probably follow suit with Iditarod, but they did not. And they wrote me a big, long letter about how, this affects the villages, and sexual assault is a problem in the villages. And I understood that 100%. I get it. But the facts is that I had run that race 4 times. I had been in the villages. I had made communication with all of them. I had made friends with all of them. They all knew my reputation. I had no prior history of any of this. And I just pleaded my case that way, like this is where we're at. How can you take this at face value when there's nothing backing it up? And this is where things got frustrated, because all sort of justice went out the door. There was no level of fairness involved. And even the thing that frustrates me the most is like the K300 is run by a lawyer, and they're bound by the law. And in the end, they just threw the law out the window. I mean, in their statement, they said, we do not have the ability or the desire to investigate this anymore. So we're not going to rush to judgment. But by asking me to withdraw, you're rushing to judgment. You're accusing me of being guilty before any reason of.
Yeah. And let's be clear. First of all, to acknowledge the fact that, if a woman is abused, it is hard for them to come forward. It is hard to make, these big public statements and get into the public eye. So that is a legitimate concern. But that said, our whole system of justice is based on an accused being able to address the accusations, to confront their accuser, and that there is a presumption of innocence until proven guilty, that you're innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. So I can understand how this would be really frustrating, from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it was just all got thrown out the window, and it was all anonymous. So there, everyone says, oh, you didn't fight back, but what was I gonna fight back on? Who was I gonna fight back against? There was no one taking accountability for any of these accusations. And then they said, oh, we got more accusations. But these people, yeah, they're just going to keep writing letters that just repeat themselves with no basis in truth, with no evidence, with nothing. And so in the end, the K300 just basically said, we're lazy and we don't want to deal with this problem, and we want to protect our race, so we just don't want you to be here. And the thing with the K300 is that it's a fly-out race. And so the race organization supports you the whole way. You need them to give you a host family. They are supporting you the whole way. So I can't just get in my truck and drive down like the Copper Basin. I can drive down, and I don't need the race to support me at all. I can just go on there on my own, sign up, run the race. But the K300 isn't like that. So I couldn't be just like, I'm coming. Like they basically forced me to withdraw by saying, you're not welcome in our community. So you need to withdraw from this race. And it was crushing and it was frustrating. And again, it just goes back to the law. It was like, all I wanted was a fair shake. All I wanted was an ability to defend myself, but they weren't even giving me the ability to defend myself because there was nothing, I couldn't defend myself against anybody. There wasn't anybody there. So, and unfortunately, what that did is as soon as the K300 did that, they gave these allegations some sort of credibility because they stood behind these allegations, basically, is what they did by forcing me out of the race. And I knew that that was going to be ammunition for the haters and for the people behind all this. And so and that's what happened. Then we went back into later in December, and then more letters came out and saying, look, the K300 justified, is legitimizing these things, and we want all of you races to follow suit, like follow suit of the K300 because they made it, they are believing these women, and all of you need to believe these women as well. And that started this domino effect of races not knowing what to do, because
Sure.
now they've got Iditarod saying this, they've got K300 saying this. In the meantime, I'm just head down trying to train, trying to keep my focus, knowing that, like, thinking in my head, this is all eventually going to get sorted out. There isn't anyone that's actually, accusing me of these things in real time. How can anybody take this at face value without looking into it at all? But I have some notes here, but it just started to snowball.
So
Because
let me, and I want you, I don't want you to feel like you have to do the notes.
yeah.
I want you to just flow freely here. So I want to ask you, and this will probably be the toughest question in this interview. Obviously you've denied these allegations from day one. This is your first time speaking to the general public about this. So what do you want to say about the allegations? What do you want to say about your position? What do you want people to hear that maybe, people, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and he who complains the loudest wears, and the keyboard warriors are out there, and you haven't, you withdrew yourself. So what is it you want people to hear, about these accusations and your position concerning them?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, they're not true. I did not commit any of these things that I'm accused of. And it is all based in lies. And the ability to be able to defend yourself in social media is pointless, to be honest with you. Like, yeah, I could have jumped on social media and started like, I didn't do this, but where does that get me? That's a losing battle. That would have gotten me more negative press. That would have put me more into this like beatdown session. It would have involved more people coming in. And so I decided, with my advice from lawyers, I had multiple lawyers. One of my best friends is a lawyer. I was getting input from all of these people, asking them, what is my best course of action here? I mean, I did not do this. There are no people standing behind these accusations. They're completely false. So how do I move forward this? And basically they said, you just don't feed into their frenzy, and you just keep your head down and keep going.
It's absolutely true.
And let the law take its course.
Yeah.
Eventually,
social media is not the courtroom. It's absolutely true. And it's a lesson. I mean, love him or hate him, it's a lesson I learned from Joe Rogan. He said he used to let his joy and peace get stolen from him by getting into the comment sections on his posts. And he said, what I do is I just post what I want to say. I say what I want to say, and let the haters say whatever they want to say, and do not get into the comment section. Do not engage. Do not. And so following that track really helped me a lot, because it's kept me from feeling the need to be, because people like to, force you to be silent. They like to, pressure you to be silent so that just, their narrative is being heard. But just kind of taking that that position and say, hey, I'm going to publicly say what I want to say, and I'm going to completely ignore the flame wars in the comment sections, really helped me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it got me through this. If I would have engaged in all of that, I would have deteriorated myself trying to do that, and it would have been a losing battle. There was no one to fight. That was the thing, is that I had nobody to fight. I was, I knew, and the thing in the back of my head through all this, I didn't do this. So I knew there was going to be no legal charges. I was 100% confident that I was never going to have legal charges in this. So I went forward with that in my head, going, eventually the law is going to prevail. In my head, eventually the law was going to have to prevail. But it unfortunately did not, and it spiraled more out of control. And I hate to say it, but most of my frustration lies with the races, because these people on social media, there's
going to be flame wars on either side on social media always. And again, I am not downplaying the accusations. Again, I don't know, but I will say there is, in our culture, there's this tendency amongst a lot of people where, everyone rooted for Dallas until Dallas started becoming a champion. And then there's the drug scandal. Everyone rooted for Ryan Reddington because he was the underdog until he's leaving the last checkpoint. And then all of a sudden, everyone's just ripping him to shreds on social media. So there is this tendency to put a target on, the person at the top. And I guess before I move on, then, on that note, why do you think? Why? I mean, why do you think? What's the motivation behind the hit on you, in your opinion?
I think it's a combination of a few different things. I mean, jealousy clearly plays a role in it. The bottom line is that I started this career and I put everything I had into it, and I moved to the bush and I became a machine. And people came and went from my life, and they were told that they were, number 51 on the list. And that was the facts. Like, my dogs were number one in my life. My career was number one in my life. And people came and people went, and there were people that played lots of huge roles in my operation, in my career. But they came and went. And then over years, I think that this created some angst, because I kept getting better and better and better and better and improving and gaining, and my career grew. And in the end, it created a lot of people to be jealous. And I don't really know. I don't want it to be that, but I don't really know what other reason that someone's going to do this. And then it's both, I know that there are competitors involved with this. I've lost only a handful of friends. In general, I haven't lost any friends, but there are a handful of friends that I lost that I have no explanation on. No one explained anything. They just dropped me. And these are competitive mushers that I was racing against, and they just dropped me without any explanation. And so that right there just tells you, like, there's motives behind the motives, for sure. And so
at the very least, they want to distance themselves from the controversy. Yeah.
So, and so really in the end, the frustrations lie in the races, because the social media stuff, I stopped looking at that immediately.
So let's talk about that. As an Iditarod champion, how did it feel when you were disqualified from the 2024 Iditarod?
I mean, you can't even, there's no explanation. I mean, the struggle I went through all season, actually, the being decreed from Iditarod wasn't really, that was just, I kind of knew it was going to happen, to be honest with you, by the time I got to that point, because there was no law involved. I had multiple, the Iditarod then all backtracked on everything. Once the K300 had made that decision, the haters threw more out there, threw more letters at my sponsors, threw more letters at the races, saying that people are taking traction. This is gaining traction, and Iditarod folded. They folded, and they took the side because they basically got blackmailed by the haters and the media that's saying, look, this is your option. You have this guy who's going to have a real good chance of winning the race, because his reputation precedes him. I had won almost every race that season. I was coming in with the strongest dog team that I've ever had. And we're going to write this news article, and we're going to post it. It's going to go to the Daily News Miner, and you're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And so I did run.
And then, and we know that big races like the Iditarod, they're struggling to, with sponsorships and that kind of thing. So, that I can see how those fears would
totally
have an effect.
But the whole time I'm just trying to say law and order. We live in a world with a judicial system that we need to rely on. And they all just turn their back on it completely. There was never any due process with any of this at all. I was never given a fair shake. I was never able to, I couldn't defend anything. There was nobody to defend to. So who, other than to the races, be like, I did not do this. That's all I can tell you, is that I did not do this. I can't go after anybody, because the only people I can go after is the people on social media hating on me like crazy. And that's a endless battle. You can't, they can say whatever they want.
And I've said this, I think, twice now. I'm not here to adjudicate this. But it just stands to reason. You can't destroy someone's career based on a nameless accusation that has not even been, and that's what's happened in effect, is like your career is stripped from you on an accusation that has not been legally prosecuted in any way. So let me ask you this then. While we're on the subject of the races and that hurt, there's going to be race people listening to this. How do you wish they had handled it? How do you think they should handle it? And going forward, when accusations are made, what do you think races should do? Going forward, how do you think races should handle things like this?
I mean, I think they should do it just like the K200 did it. If there aren't charges, we can't do anything about it. We are not the judge and jury. The dog races, I mean, the K300 basically became my judge and jury. Then the Iditarod followed up to become my judge and jury. The K200 said, Brent has a good reputation. There's nothing in the law system that's saying that that's not untrue. There's no people. That was the thing. There was no one to take accountability for these accusations. It was completely anonymous. So the way that I feel like it has to happen is it has to fall back on the law. These accusations. And if there is a person, if there would have been a person, I would have fought that person to the utmost of my abilities, and I would have had someone to fight against. But because there was nobody that would put their name behind it, I had nothing to fight. I had no one to go up against. And so I was going up against these races that just weren't listening. They were just saying, oh, these accusations are serious. I'm like, I understand they are extremely serious, but how do I defend myself other than to say I didn't do this? Where else can I go? Like, I can't sit down with a person and reason with anybody. I can't even take my lawyer and go talk to anybody because there isn't anybody to talk to, And so that part of it was extremely frustrating. And I was, and through all of this, they're putting me through this. The Iditarod is calling me and telling me this, that they got affidavits and anonymous, and I'm like, who? It's anonymous. Well, then what am I supposed to do? How do I deal with this? And I got to the point where everyone said, oh, you should have fought it more. You should have done a defamation lawsuit. But who am I going to file a defamation lawsuit against? I mean, these haters on social media have all the right to say whatever they want all over the internet, Yeah. So I had no defense.
Okay. So looking back, either in your interactions with these ladies, or in your public response or interaction with the races, if you could do any of that over again, is there anything that you'd do differently?
I mean, no, because I didn't do anything wrong with these women, so I wouldn't change anything there. Yeah. If I say I would change something, I would have not devoted my life to sled dogs, and I would not have my career. And so people can berate me all they want. Yeah, am I not a good boyfriend? I am definitely not a good boyfriend. Like, I put dogs first and first and foremost in my life. I will admit I am a very flawed person, but I put myself to some goals and I go at it 1,000%. And did I upset people along the way? Yes. Did I have arguments with females along the way? Yes. Did I probably break some hearts along the way? Yes, I did that. I know I did that. And I I regret that in some way because I know that I did hurt some people in an emotional way because of that. But at the same token, I wouldn't be what I am today if I hadn't have done that. And all of those people played a role in getting me to where I am today. And even these people that have these allegations, I mean, I pretty much know by timeline who did these allegations. All right. And I know these people, and they were big parts of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And they played a huge role in my career. And when they left, it clearly wasn't what they wanted, or down the line, it clearly wasn't what they wanted. And for some reason, they felt like this was some sort of retaliation. And all I wish is that I don't know.
So your position is hell hath no wrath like a woman scorned. That's your
yeah.
That's your position.
That's basically it. I mean, I said I'll admit to all of that. Like I put the dogs first, and so when you go in,
let's assume that that they're listening. What would you say to them?
Why did you wait 10 years? Why were you my friend? Like, these people were all my friend from the time date where all these accusations were said to happen. They continued to be my friend. I was talking with these people throughout that time. And as I moved to the bush and I became more secluded and more focused on my career, I separated myself from people more. So I definitely lost touch with a lot of these people. And so I wasn't in touch with these people for a long time. But why then, right after I start having success, do you come out and say that all of this happened? Like, it's kind of a red flag, right? To anybody who can see anything. You can't wait 10 years and how can you hold this in? And then also, how is this justice? This isn't justice. Like, yeah, you ruined my life. You took my career. You took everything that I did for the last 20 years and it got evaporated. Basically, in the time span of 3 months, my entire career and my reputation was shot because of mainly the people on social media who spread that around. And then when these allegations came out that are completely false and completely made up stories, there was nothing I could defend. I didn't do it. That's all I could say. So there wasn't anybody to push back.
So, Brent Sass comeback? If so, what does rebuilding look like for you? Does that include races? I mean, like, are you rebuilding? Are you making a comeback? Do you intend to race again? Like, where are you at?
You know what I did? This all happened, and the hardest decision of my life was to sell my dogs. This all happened, and the thing that also was so frustrating is that even though I did it, I'd said, well, if you get exonerated from this, you're more than welcome to come back and run our race in the future. How do you get exonerated from anonymous accusations that are false? Like, I can't. How do I exonerate that other than doing this with you?
You would actually have to litigate yourself since they're refusing to litigate you.
But who am I going to litigate? Like, there isn't anybody to litigate. So, like, Iditarod says this, but they're not giving me a path back. No one is giving me a path back. So
what would you say to those race officials that a lot of them are probably listening to this?
I mean, where's my fair shake? Like, how can you do this to me and with no basis? And there's still nothing. The bottom line is the only time any of this comes up is when I sign up for a dog race. Like, after I got DQ'd, after that horrible news article came out, the entire thing went away. yeah, it goes in their echo chambers on social media or whatever. But to this day, still, Jonathan, I have never had anyone personally talk to me about this, personally send me even a message. I haven't even got hate mail. There's been nothing like that because it's all just in the eyes of these crazy people on the internet that like to spread all kinds of rumors. And so, I mean, I just want my fair shake. How do I come back? Yeah, then let me know how I come back, because you've made it impossible for me to come
So,
back to the races.
so what you would say to them is, you know, you can't win, you can't win a, you can't win a trial that you've never been litigated in. You can't win a court hearing that never takes place. So give me a path forward.
Yeah, give me a path forward is exactly it. And the bottom line is, when I made the decision to sell my dogs, it was for, again, my entire career, the entire focus was the dogs. And I had made this dog team, and I wanted nothing more than this dog team to race. And it was clear that I wasn't going to be able to just fix this and come back very easily. And I didn't want the core years of this dog team to go to waste. This is my life's work. You know, this is everything I've done for my entire career. So I sold my dogs. The whole MAINE team went to a good friend of mine, a person I trusted. And I spent the summer gold mining and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And everything happens for a reason. And back in 2023, before all this happened, I was in Norway doing a speech, a talk in Norway, and I met some people over there. We hit it off. They were going to come visit me and hang out and look at my kennel and everything. And then all this happened, and we started a conversation. And he was like, "Why don't you just come over here? Why don't?" And I said, "Well, do you need some help?" And he's like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you." So I went to Norway, and I engulfed myself in another kennel, and I used all of the skills and my mentoring, and I became a coach and a mentor, and brought a couple dogs over to help him with his kennel. And I spent all last season in an extremely awesome environment, mushing dogs, clearing my mind, all positive. I owe everything of my recovery from this to my friends in Norway. Like, they brought me out of this hole and gave me the light, showed me the light, basically, you know? And so that was my path forward. And so when I came back from that, I came back in June, I got in touch with my buddy that has my dogs, and I was like, "Hey, can I help you out in some way? I love to train dogs. I want to go live in Eureka. That's my home. But if I don't have dogs, I can't go live in Eureka." And so, because I'm not going to live in the middle of the bush all by myself with no dogs. So I started training dogs, and I was like, I'm just going to sign up for some races. I'm going to sign up for the Copper Basin and the Quest, because those races, and the K200, because those races didn't have a problem with it before. They were the ones that I felt dealt with it the best. Signed up for the K200. Of course, hadn't even been talked about in months and months and months. Yep. And boom, the haters come right back as soon as I signed up for the dog race. If that isn't just the writing on the wall, I don't know what is. You know, like, how is that possible that it can die out? Nobody cares that I'm a rapist until I get signed up for a dog race. Then everybody cares again. And that is the most ridiculous part about all of this. And I want the races to look at that and say, how can you defend that? Like, how can you say, oh, as soon as he signs up, they all come back out of the woodwork. Oh, we better not let him race, you know? And the proof is, I signed up for the K200 first. They started hating. The K200 erased those comments and blocked those people, and it went away. My name's on the list. No one says anything. K200 says they're not getting any complaints. And I'm like, okay, well then this is good. Like, that race took the right accountability for it. But then I signed up for Copper Basin, and the writing was on the wall. The start list did not come out right after the thing happened, right after people signed up. And everyone wants the start list, right? Immediately, everyone wants the start list. Who's on the start list? And they wouldn't release it. And then I got a call from the race manager of the Copper Basin, and he just said, the board is having trepidations about letting you on the race. And he's like, the vote doesn't look good. And then after a week of basically being put on trial over social media, because at this point, everyone found out, like, oh, Brent signed up. And that's why we're not getting a start list, because the Copper Basin is figuring out whether they want to put them in the race or not.
And then you're back in the headlines again. Yeah.
And then I'm back in the headlines again. And it's like, oh my God, I'm reliving the nightmare all over again, where I had put this behind me in a lot of ways. Obviously, my career was ruined, but I had been able to find a way forward. And that was the thing that really hurt. Was like, I went to Norway, and then you have all these ignorant people on the internet going, oh, he's running away to Norway. I was running from anything. I was pursuing my life.
You could run dogs. Right.
I was pursuing my life. I was, in the end, these people wanted me to crawl into a hole and hate myself. Like that's these social media people's message. And I wasn't going to do that. I was going to keep living and get busy living or get busy dying. It's one of my favorite quotes of ever from Shawshank Redemption. And it's, if you don't get busy living, then you're just getting busy dying. So that's what I did. And yeah, so the Copper Basin. So in the end, after a week of basically putting me on trial, this season now, this is 2 years after all of this went down. Nothing has been said basically for the last year about me at all, until I signed up for some dog races. And in the end, the Copper Basin voted to not allow me to enter the race, and just denied my entry with no explanation, because there is no explanation. They can't put any explanation behind it because there is no explanation. So there's no basis in fact in anything. So yeah, so that was a hard pill to swallow. That goes back to like, how do I exonerate myself? So this is a lifetime ban from any kind of dog sports, because anytime
because of hearsay, because
of pure hearsay. And there's never been, I mean, for the record, I'll say it again, there has never been charges. There will never be charges there, and if there are ever charges, I am more than equipped to fight them to the nth degree.
Well, and here's the, assuming for a moment that you're telling the truth and you're innocent, then I think you would agree with what I'm about to say. And I said this publicly when all of this blew up on social media 2 years ago. You can't destroy someone's life on rumors. And to say, our culture just went through this short phase where it was like, believe all women, believe all women, believe all women. That's as crazy as saying believe all men.
Yeah,
because the presumption is that all women are inherently good and all men are inherently evil. That's the presumption when you say believe all women. You can't believe all women. Like there has to be, and I know it's hard because I've had it in my own family. And what I was going to say, I'm sure you would agree with, is I said publicly, look, rapists, castrate them.
Totally.
Give them the death penalty. Like I am not soft on these issues at all, and so my reasoning here, for bringing you on is not because I'm soft on these issues. It's because I believe that you cannot destroy someone's life on hearsay. So my hope, Brent, is that if the accusations are true, my hope is that the victim would actually seek justice, go through the court system, press charges, and have her day in court, give you your day in court, and that she comes out victorious in those court hearings, right? If there's if she's truly a victim. If and until then, I think it's just logical and reasonable to say you can't give Brent a life sentence.
No. Yeah.
For anonymous hearsay.
Yeah. That's what I've been given. I mean, and I saw the writing on the wall, and my lawyers saw the writing on the wall 2 years ago. They said this can't go away because you can't exonerate yourself. So that's our question to the races. And at the time I was like, I don't care about the races. I'm done with the races for now. And then when I came back and I had a whole new outlook on it, I was refreshed. I was back from Norway. I had nothing but positive vibes. Nothing had been said about me at all. I mean, maybe in the echo.
You came back and you were like wild and free, baby.
Yeah, I'm like, all right. And I didn't have any intentions to go out and win races. I had I was going to be running 2-year-olds for fun to help train a future team, like that was the goal. I had no other intentions other than to just come back to the sport. And the bottom line is there are hundreds of thousands of people that want to see me in this races. I know for a fact because I get a tremendous amount of positive feedback, still do to this day. I get a message every other day that says, you need to come back to the sport.
Well,
you need to come back to the sport.
I can tell you that, I know that I'm going to get flack for giving you a platform to speak. So I reached out to several people, friends of mine in the mushing community, and to the person, I got the same response from everyone. And the response was, he deserves to be heard. He has the right to be heard. Like, he, just like everyone else, Brent has the right to, be able to speak his piece on this issue.
Yeah.
So what is your goal? Like, have you allowed yourself to, people perish for a lack of vision, and that's where darkness really sets into the heart. Have you allowed yourself, to have vision, to have, what your goal, your plan, like what are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, when your entire life gets taken away, swept out from underneath you, when you have like that was the way I made money. It was everything. And so it was a total revamp of my entire being, And like I said, the healing happened in Norway. I came back and the vision is to stay in dogs. I love dogs. I have 3 dogs. I own 3 dogs at the moment, my retired dogs, and the rest of them are with people that I trust and know. And luckily I'm able to have a hand in that now. And I'm helping them train their dogs. And because they were my dogs, and so the genetics, I obviously have the ability to work with these dogs very, very well because I know them. And so, yeah, and then I have this opportunity in Norway, and I'm going to continue to go over there and help the kennel and my buddy over there. And so, yeah, I'm just moving forward. I spent 20 years of my life completely devoted to these sled dog races. I brought the fire. I brought the positive energy. I brought everything that the race needed to make it a better sport to watch. I brought the drama. There's no doubt. Like I said, my career had the biggest highs and lows of anybody's, there's no doubt about it. And it was 99% of it was self-inflicted. And I took accountability for all of those crazy roller coaster rides. And that's why people liked me. That's why people got endeared to me. And do I want to be back in that public spotlight? No. Social media ruined that for me. I'm not really that excited about getting back into it, especially after what happened this year, because following the Copper Basin thing, I went to the Quest and was like, hey, I just got put on trial for signing up. I don't want to go through this again. Do you guys want me in your race? And the board voted unanimously, yes, we want you in this race. But of course, then that leaked out to social media. And then they started hating on the race. They started going after sponsors. And
I saw that actually. I saw race officials getting attacked on social media for considering letting you race.
For any sort of support of me. And it's just irrational. I mean, those people on social media are completely irrational. And all you have to do is look at what they're posting and look at what they're saying. And it's just not rational thought. That's all I'm asking people to look at is like, the reason I didn't engage is there is no point to engage. If you engage, you fuel the fire that just pumps those people up even more, and it just doesn't do any good. And it's horrible, like you say with the Joe Rogan thing, it's horrible for your own psyche to even think or look at any of that. Mm-hmm. So to be honest, like I said, my frustration is with the races, because in the end, the Quest backed down and told me, oh, it's better if you just don't sign up. You're creating a lot of flack. You just want to stay out of this right now. It's better you don't. And this is a race.
But right now is 2 years later, and it's still stay out of it right now. Like, how long do they want you to stay out of it?
It's forever, because these people on social media aren't going to stop. I could not sign up for a race for 5 years. And probably when I put my name back on a list, those people have nothing better to do with their life. So they're just going to keep throwing the spitballs, So I just got sick of it, and I just don't deal with it. I mean, the best thing that ever happened from all this, I am off social media. Like the clarity of not being on social media anymore is amazing. Now, do I miss reaching out to my fans? Do I miss having the interaction with them? Because they were a large part of my success. My fan base was the most loyal you could ever have on the face of the planet. I mean, when the Iditarod DQ'd me for the iPod Touch in 2016, which was another complete farce, I'm the only person in the history of Iditarod to get DQ'd twice for 0 dog-related issues that were never proven, And so, but the Iditarod took a hit for that. My fans backed me 1,000%, and they couldn't do anything after that. They had to eat crow on that, and they changed the rule. It's the Brent Sass rule now, because now you can use as much two-way communication devices as you want. Like that one, I actually at least.
Yeah, I'm running a 250-mile race next year, and I think it's the next week. I mean, and it's I think the Can-Am Crown is like the only race that still bans two-way communication. Like everyone else is like Brent Sass did at this point.
Totally. We can't, it couldn't be regulated, and it made sense why that rule happened. But I mean, they changed it the second after they, ruined my, I mean, again, I won the Quest that year. I was coming to Iditarod. I was killing it 300-400 miles in, and I had to turn around and mush my dog team straight back home from Tanana. And it was the most gut-wrenching experience of my life up until this, So Iditarod, the race that I've devoted my entire life to for the last 15 years, has basically kicked me to the curb twice now with 0 basis in fact. And it's frustrating. And and that's where it lies. Like, I am not frustrated with any women that have a problem with rape or anyone who has a problem with any of these sexuals. So I stand behind these people. I sympathize with these people. It makes me sick inside to think that people actually maybe believe that I could be capable of this. And that is what I've been living with for the last year. And then there's sled dog races who I devoted my entire life to just threw me under the bus.
Yeah.
With zero ability to defend myself, with 0 ability to stand up for myself, because they just made the decision, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Yeah. And that's why, I wanted to give you this opportunity, because I've seen both sides within my own family. I've seen, assault on women in my extended family. And like I said, I actually committed assault because of that assault on a woman in my family. But I've seen the opposite too. I've seen men that I knew for a fact were innocent, just completely getting destroyed, on hearsay. And, I'm not here as judge and jury. I'm here, to give people an opportunity to hear you, and just apply some logic here. If the ladies are listening, if you're truly a victim, press charges,
that's just that simple.
Give Brent a chance.
Give me something to fight.
That's right. And if not, then to the races, stop giving this man a life sentence for hearsay. So 20 years from now, Brent, what do you hope your legacy is? I'm sure you hope that you outlive and outshine this, dark chapter. So what do you hope your long lasting legacy is in this?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the dogs. Mushing is all about the dogs. And I want my longtime legacy to be that I devoted my life to the sled dogs for 20 years, and I worked at it as hard as I possibly could, and we achieved our goals. I achieved all the goals I wanted to achieve. But I want people to remember me by the way I treated my dogs and the roller coaster ride I had. But in the end, I always put my dogs first, and I always focused it on dogs. And when people focus the sport on dogs, good things come out of it. I'm proof of it. I focused everything on dogs, and I created the biggest social media following of anybody in the sport. Dallas is probably right there with me at some point, but my interaction with people was huge, and it was all about the dogs. And that's why people latched on to me, because I made it all about the dogs, because that's what this sport is all about. It's about the dogs. And with all this other clutter,
And
with all this
I'll
other
interject
stuff.
here and say I don't think you're being completely fair to yourself. I believe, you just mentioned Dallas. I believe Dallas is completely 100% about the dogs, but I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. You're a very personable guy. Like, you're a
Yeah.
very likable guy, very friendly guy, and you were just you were open, vulnerable. You seemed like you were, you had a way on social media of just making everyone feel like they were your buddy and you were their buddy,
Yeah.
that is a
It,
gift.
and that's who I am. Anyone who does know me personally, my long-term friends, that's attitude is everything. It's tattooed on my arm. That is what I live by. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Also tattooed on my arm. Believe is tattooed on my chest. Like, these are the things that I live by every day. Like, and it's all about the positive energy, and that's what got me through this. I could have never gotten through any of this had I not, one, had all the support from all the fans. Like, can't thank everybody enough for supporting me through all this, because I never would have been able to do it if I was just getting berated from all ends. But I wasn't getting berated from any end, because I was only getting positive support through all of this, except for your echo chambers on social media, in the public realm. But everybody had sent me personal messages. Everybody that reached out to me, everybody was supportive. And that was the thing that was so frustrating to me, was that all these people are supporting me and the races are just shoving me under the bus. Like, they're not giving me, and it's not even that I just want a fair shake. I just want a fair opportunity to exonerate myself, but they're not giving that. There is no way to exonerate myself from anonymous accusations.
Well,
So if there's any message, what what is the path forward?
what's
And
about?
and I just don't want other people to have to go through this.
Yeah.
You ask what races should do in the future. You should abide by the law. Lawyers have to follow the law. Judges have to follow the law. Let's follow the law. And
Yeah.
if
I
that's
mean,
just
it would do you no good. I mean, you asked who would you litigate against, for defamation and stuff. I mean, yeah, I guess you could the races, but that's not going to do you any good, because you
what
don't want to make enemies out of the people who, your career, your life, you don't want them to be your enemies.
it's an amazing point. The bottom line is, too, through all this, yeah, if I wanted to, if I had a vindictive personality, I could have went after him. If I had an empty, bottomless bank account, I could have went after them, and it would have taken a long time. But I feel like I probably could have won if I would have put enough effort into it. But the fact of the matter is,
That
I
would done
love
nobody any good.
I, I love this sport. I love these races. I committed my life to these races. And I don't want to be the guy who takes the sport out. I want to be the guy that lifts the sport up. And
Yeah.
that's what I did for 20 years. I lifted the sport up with everything I had. And then one thing happens, and every one of those races just tosses me under the bus.
So
And
to summarize our conversation on the hard stuff, you correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing you say is, um, if you truly, believe that, that I'm a victimizer, prosecute me.
yeah,
And if not, races, let me have my life back. Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
yeah, just quit legitimizing illegitimate accusations. Like, that is what I ask. Like, if I mean, I feel like the course got screwed up immediately when the K300 gave those accusations any credit. And I hate to say it, but I blame the K300 for this, because they opened the door. The Iditarod did the right thing to start out.
Initially,
They
yeah, yeah,
did. Initially, they did the right thing, but then they folded to the pressures.
yeah.
They folded to the social media people. They completely rolled over and left me out in the dark. And what they did is they opened it up for all of this stuff to happen. And I mean, we can get into what's going on out there right now, but there's a guy who gave Iditarod a whole bunch of money, and he's in the Epstein files. So We don't need to go down there. But how do you compare those two? Like, what do you do? Iditarod, you set your standards. So now how do you do that? You can't condone that. So you didn't condone anything that was accused of me. How can you condone that? And this guy just gave you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And
to your point, the right way to deal with it is not out him because he's not been prosecuted.
No.
As they should not have outed you because you have not been prosecuted.
I'm not going after this guy. I feel that's his own thing. All I'm asking is, Iditarod, now what? Like, this is going to continue to happen. Are you going to just make me the only one that you make an example of? Or does money talk? Like, that's my question to Iditarod. Like, clearly, you have made your stance. And if you're not going to hold up to your stance, then how is anything you've done to me over the last 2 years credible in any way? It's not credible in any way. Everybody on the planet knows that. So, yeah, it's obviously, you can see I get pretty worked up, and I have never talked about any of this with really other than close friends and family. And so it's really good.
It's time.
Yeah, it's really good to get it out there. And love me, hate me, like me, whatever. I don't care, really, to be honest, what people think of me. I just want a fair shake. I just want the ability to live my life and not have this cloud be hanging over me forever, because there is no way for me to exonerate it. And the only way is for the races to acknowledge that this stuff can't be held against me. And until
anyone that's not been prosecuted and convicted.
That's the fear I have about this sport. And the biggest fear I have about this sport going forward is that the races are not taking care of the mushers. And I'm not one to complain, and I'm not one to make excuses or anything. But the bottom line is, my experience proves that they're just willing to throw anybody, even one of their most valuable assets. And I'm toting myself here now, but in the end, I was a valuable asset to the races and to the sport because I brought a lot to it. I don't think anybody is going to argue with that. And they were willing to just toss it underneath the bus to save face, and for a minute. But they're not saving face anymore, because this is going to live with them for a long time now. And I don't know what the path forward is. The path forward, for me, is maybe I'll sign up for a race again. Maybe I won't. I have a clear head, and I have clear goals, and I'm moving forward with my life. If that involves racing in the future, the time will tell. The one thing I do know is that I don't have time to deal with this stuff. So after signing up for the races this year and having to deal with it again, it's not worth it to me. And it's a shame for the fans, and it's a shame for all of my supporters that it isn't worth it to me. But the fact of the matter is, I'm fighting a losing battle if I continue to fight it. There's a reason I didn't fight it in the beginning publicly, because there was nothing to fight. And if I'm given something to fight, I will fight it just with everything I have. But that's not going to happen. And if it does, I'll fight it. But I don't see that happening. It's been 12, 14 years since these allegations supposedly happened. It's a moot point. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's worth putting a magnifying glass on for a second, because, the allegations were made public a couple of years ago, but what you're saying is these are unsubstantiated, unverified allegations from like 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah. It's all back from 2012, and so it just doesn't add up. And the bottom line is there's no truth in it. So that's all I can say. And
let's wrap up on a positive note.
All right.
I blew out my knee for the 3 or 4 days before the Copper Basin. So Laura Kittleson raced against you on the team that I had been training. But then I still ran a couple weeks later, ran the Willow 300 on a completely blown out knee, and came home and the doctor was like, "How are you even standing up on that knee?" I went to Alaska to run a 300-mile race, and
I'm going to do it.
Yeah. But I sat there in the dog yard, in the dog yards at the checkpoints in the Copper, and watched your in and out routine. And I really loved the way that you did the little pep rally with your dogs as you were about to leave the checkpoints all the time. Your little, hey guys, you ready? This. Tell me about your routine leaving a checkpoint like that, and what what the psychology was for you behind that.
Yeah, with me, like I said, it was always about the attitude in the dogs. And the only way for the dogs to have a positive attitude is if you have a positive attitude. So my entire career was revolved around that. Put the energy into the dogs that I want the dogs to put out. Like, I want them to put out positive energy. I want them to give their all. And so I was always giving my all. I was always giving them everything that I had. And that involved a lot of communicating with them and a lot of talking with them, both verbally and non-verbally, in the end. And people saw it in checkpoints when but I have still, even though they aren't owned by me, this amazing connection with the dogs. And that connection is what drove me throughout my entire sport, or throughout my entire career in this sport. And that ability to pump dogs up, I took a lot of pride in, and I was able to motivate my team to do amazing things. Together with them, we did amazing things, and no one can take that away from me. Like,
yeah,
that's the bottom line. No one can take that away, and that's a lasting legacy that when people look at me with my dogs, it's positive. And that's the number one thing I can take from all of it is positivity, and that's what's gotten me through it. And in the end, my dogs have also gotten me through this. Even though they're with somebody else, I'm still a part of their life, and I see them thriving, and that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And that's the lasting legacy, is that no matter who's running them, they're doing what they were supposed to do, and that makes me happy.
Wild and free.
Wild and free forever.
Brent, I appreciate you coming on and being willing to have this conversation, not just about your victories, but especially about this difficult chapter in your life. To our listeners, I want to say serious allegations are serious matters. They deserve to be treated that way, but no criminal charges were filed. Brent has shared his perspective here today and has maintained his innocence in his own words from the get-go. So I encourage everyone to think critically, listen carefully, draw your own conclusions about this. At the end of the day, long-distance mushing is about endurance, and man, the trail can be unforgiving, and that goes for public life as well. Brent, I want to thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and I appreciate the platform, and yeah, I just hope that everyone can hear this out and think rationally and think what you will, but just, we got to believe in our judicial system, and that is the one thing I'll stand by throughout all of this, is that law and order means something in this country, and I feel like that is what needs to be. The standards in dog mushing need to live up to that, and these races cannot be the judge and jury.
Well, I hope that race officials, I hope that your accusers, I hope everyone's been listening, and that some positivity will come out of this. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, John.
All right,
Have a good day.
Okay.
Yep.